And good morning. We are live on the Falcons podcast. It is Monday, and we are to roster cut time, which means the Atlanta Falcons will go from 90 to 53 and then re-sign another 16. I think it's still 16 guys on Tuesday afternoon, Wednesday, to have their full 70-ish man squad for the season, which will then be in changing constantly. So want to bring in my Facebook groups here real quick. That's Atlanta Falcons on SI and Scott Kennedy Sports. And then we'll get going for sure. I still expect Nick to be here, but it is 5:30 in the morning out in Seattle when he joins us. So we give him a little leeway as we come in. Welcome in, everybody. This is the Falcons podcast. It is Monday. It is a big week for those in Flowery Branch, as the Atlanta Falcons will go from their 90-man roster down to their 53-man roster. And then some lucky players will then get re-signed after being cut initially to the practice squad. And that's one thing to keep in mind when you start talking about, well, we'll just stash him on the practice squad. Two things there. One, you have to cut the player before he can be re-signed to the practice squad. So you have to open him up to the waiver wire. And two, once he's on the practice squad, any other team can sign a player from the practice squad as long as they put that player on their 53-man roster. So in essence, they're still kind of free agents. So, stashing a guy on a practice squad, it can be good, but it's no guarantee that you're actually going to be able to keep the player. But what we're going to get into, the Falcons had 13 roster cuts already yesterday, including possible quarterback 3, quarterback 4, John Paddock, who we had talked about as possibly taking Taylor Heinicke's spot. Taylor Heinicke is still there, so we will get into all of that. Want to bring in Nick, who I see logging in right now, and we'll say good morning. Nick, how are you doing this morning, my friend?
I am doing well, getting by. Had a pretty good weekend. Still getting a little bit over this cold, the very end of it here, so still a little bit more nasally than normal, but doing okay. We had crazy cold rain out here for August for Seattle, and it was a nice weekend to be stuck on baby duty. So doing well overall.
It felt like an early October day for us, which meant 90 and dry, but down in the 60s at night. So still that's cool.
Nice. Yeah.
And then it gets hot and then it cools off again. So that's kind of what early October can feel like until it switches. And then it's cold rain until March. Then it's cold and rainy until March. And then it starts warming up again. But yeah, it's kind of a false fall here in the Southeast because it's going to get hot again here this week, which it's August. It's supposed to be hot. Got another month of summer. So want to say hello to some folks that have come in. We're going to talk roster cuts today and 53-man roster projection, Nick. And Victor was the first guy to jump in. That's one of the reasons we go live on Monday and Wednesdays, because we like having a conversation with y'all. Victor says, good morning. It's been a bit since I've been able to make a live. Well, welcome back. Good to see y'all again. And he has some questions. He says, it'll be nice to see some regular season action. Yes, it will. I didn't even watch the preseason game. Yes. If you want to log off now because you want to get my impressions of guys who are going to be cut, then log off. But we'll talk 53-man roster, and those guys didn't play on Friday night. So I treated it kind of with the same disdain that Raheem Morris does, which is I don't care. I've got other things to do. And actually, I was at a high school football game on Friday night.
It looks like the players on the Falcons treated it like a disdain as well. What was it, 31-0?
34-0, I think.
34. I mean, the Jags had Trevor Lawrence out there, right? They were up there trying to win games. I mean, Tank Bigsby out here making plays as well. But, there was some stuff to take away as well. We've already had Falcons cuts. But, yeah, this was a very unnotable game for the Falcons. Just kind of hard to watch, Scott. I watched
Friday night in the Southeast. We're going to high school football, so I went and watched bad high school football instead of bad NFL football. So, but I had more fun being out amongst the community over at where was I? I always get Denmark and Cambridge confused. I was at Cambridge the other night, and they got a kid that's got a Maryland offer. Big defensive lineman. They got a big offensive lineman. Number 71 looked pretty good too. They rolled right over Johns Creek. Johns Creek's so bad. What do you guys think our ceiling is what Victor is? That was our show on Wednesday. We went through that whole thing, Vic, if you want to talk about it. But I feel like the ceiling for this team, I mean, when you talk about ceiling, I expect this team kind of go 11-6. So does the ceiling feel too low then to say 12-5? I mean, 13-4 is possible. They're probably going to be favored in all but 2 of their games this year. The Pittsburgh Steelers game, which I chalked up as an early L early on, not anymore. I think the Falcons will be favored and should win that game. So we'll see. And then, he follows up, says, you think there'll be a decent edge or wide receiver out there after teams do roster cuts? Probably, I would say more so on the receiver side of things. They're just a lot more common than to be able to find a difference maker at edge.
And those are the number 2 and number 3 most expensive positions in football. So even though those teams tend to have depth and rotations on good teams, you're not likely to find anything beyond a potential wide receiver 4 or like a veteran that's a cap cut that maybe can be like a okay wide receiver 3 type. I mean, you're not going to be finding very likely difference makers. You're probably having to trade for those difference makers because as we've seen, even though there are, especially wide receiver in the draft every year, they're still getting paid. They're still getting drafted early. Teams just don't feel like they have enough, even though there's a kind of a conception that there's plenty of wide receivers to be had. It's not like how they're traded.
I feel like there's a philosophy in there, Nick. I mean, look at the Chiefs. Okay, the Chiefs decided we don't want to pay a receiver.
Yeah,
and they've been okay. So
they've drafted him though.
But I mean, as far as the paying the guys, as far as are they still getting paid? Yeah, they are. Jerry Jeudy's still getting $20+ million. Jerry Jeudy, he's traded for a 5th round pick and he's getting $20 million. There's some crazy numbers out there on wide receivers considering
Calvin Ridley.
The plethora. Calvin Ridley was 20+. Was he like 22 across 3 years guaranteed? Or did he get 2 years? I can't remember if it was like 44 guaranteed or 65. It was probably 45 guaranteed. And he got 2 years, fully guaranteed $20+ million. I'm the way that people are still, in my mind, overpaying wide receivers, and that you can get them to impact early on your roster. How much difference is there between year 2 Drake London and year 6 Drake London? I don't know that there's a huge learning curve there, like you might see on a defensive lineman or something. Quarterback, that I think draft them too. I'm with you. Draft them in numbers and keep them cheap.
I think that's not to get too far down the team building philosophy. If you have a quarterback taking up that much money, you probably aren't paying wide receiver. It was kind of the reality of the Packers a couple years ago when actually we're going to keep Aaron Rodgers, which means we don't have room for Devontae Adams anymore.
Right.
So it's, or the other end, the Vikings pay Justin Jefferson, but Kirk Cousins. See, they did try to bring him back, but they had a hard line on the number there. So it's always interesting team building stuff, but they're valuable. And bringing it back to the main point there, odds are you're not going to get a difference maker that's just straight up cut. You're more likely at wide receiver than edge. You're right, Scott.
You need to look at something like, would the Broncos decide they need to make a move with Cortland Sutton and they've got a huge amount of cap flexibility? Excuse me, we're clearer now. Would they make a move with him because he's got an 18 on a 9 dead cap and they want to make a salary cut move? Maybe. Salary cut move. Maybe, but not likely. But I do think there's a chance you could get a player who could make your 3-man rotation at wide receiver 1, 2, or 3. Get a wide receiver 3 after the roster cuts. I think that's more likely than getting an edge. Getting an edge. I mean, just look at the Falcons and what they're going to end up doing. Are they cutting an edge that is going to be a starter on another team? Probably not. Might one of the wide receivers? Maybe. John Harrell, good to see you. Hope you had a great weekend too. Says, good morning, Scott, Nick, and the Falcons family. I'm nervous about our offense, even though no starters played the preseason. Think it was a mistake. Yeah, I'm with you to a certain extent on that. I'd like to see the guys go out there and get some action out there. I know the dual practices, the joint practices, and then the scrimmage they had. I couldn't help but laugh, and I can actually play the clip, but it's on the YouTube channel of Raheem Morris talking about how awesome the scrimmage was. Oh, we were really able to ramp up game situations and intensity and this and this and this. I'm like, gosh, that sounds like a preseason game. It just struck me as funny the way he was, gassing up the scrimmage. And I know there are differences. I do. But still, it's competitive, really ramped up the competitive nature and this, and this. I'm like, scrimmages are good for that too, against other teams. So we'll see, John. The good news is early, the Pittsburgh Steelers played a bunch of starters on their offense, and they look awful. Their offense, Arthur Smith's offense, trying to bring in Justin Fields and Russell Wilson as new quarterbacks, looks terrible. Let's take the under on the first game. I wonder what that is. I'd set the under, let's say 43. And I'd go with the under on that. I would say under of 43, Nick.
42.5. Wow, Scott. Good job.
I'm good at this. Yeah. That's why I don't get, I'm good at, okay, when I do those and then say, okay, it's 37. Oh, dude, take the over. I think it should be about 43. So there you go. I wouldn't take anything because I just nailed it based on what I thought it should be.
Yep.
So I probably wouldn't touch it, but I would, because my idea was like, okay, 22-21 somewhere, it's a tight game. It'd be 43 points. Okay. 24-17. We'll do predictions next week. That's 41 points. That should be right about where it's going to be. It's going to be low. But yeah, I think the offense will take a little bit of time, John. But 17 games, Nick, you've got time. You've got time to get it going.
One thing, again, we've talked about it a long time ago, but the thing that's much harder to get going is the pass game because it's just such an intricate chemistry-based, reps-based function of an offense. That said, what should play? Offensive line and running game. I mean, it's especially early on, and you see it in college football all the time. Teams take a little bit of time to get the pass game and everything going. You might see some broken plays here or there, shot plays, but it's never like, Peyton Manning, high efficiency, drop back, coordinated kind of stuff. So Falcons on paper, pretty good offensive line and arguably the best running back room in football. I'd have to go through the list here, but I mean, teams don't really have Robinson/Algier caliber backs. Now the Steelers,
it's arguable. You can go Detroit Lions. They'd be in the conversation. Atlanta's in the conversation.
Yeah.
Whether you think they're number one or not, again, I don't argue levels of elite. Mm-hmm. If you were to say Detroit Lions, I wouldn't argue with you. I think that's a good shout.
Yeah. But regardless, the pass game might be a little slow to, get going. Obviously had Kirk Cousins issues, new offensive coordinator. But the run game should take off. Now the Steelers, very good on paper, defensive line, defensive front. They have their rookie linebacker, Scott's been killing it. Peyton Wilson from North Carolina State, if you recall him. But I think you should be able to run the football and lean on that. And that should give you at least a little bit of runway to get the offense, the pass game going.
Keith, thanks for the stars over on Facebook, Keith. He says, you guys think they'll try and pick up another wide receiver after cuts? And, we hit on this a little bit. Actually, what we hit on, though, was, would one be available? Would they try and add one? I don't know. After Rondale Moore went down, maybe, but I don't think it's a huge priority. But they're always looking. I mean, that's if someone presents themselves, you always go, is this somebody that would fit on our team? Is this someone we want? You always ask the question. You're always trying to. My job as a general manager is to upgrade you. That's it. I mean, my job is to always try and replace you. Your job is to make sure you're replaceable. So yes, Keith, I would say they would try, depending on who's out there, they'll evaluate everybody that gets cut over that 24-hour period. See, Electrician, we talked a lot about this last week about the finances of going to games, and he says he finally got his PSLs paid off. He's in section 131, so it was $11,000, and I only have 2 seats. Yeah, that'd be enough to keep me out from owning season tickets. So good for you. I hope it's a long-term investment, and you get to keep those for 50 years. And then it doesn't seem like that big a deal. And if you can't make it, those become more and more valuable, and you can make some of your money back too. So enjoy. Sounds like you're a true fan. If you're in here, you're a fan. You're not just, oh, let me click on that and see what they're talking about. You're a fan. So lower bowl, section 131, we need more of you down there. Terry Clark, good to see you. He says, good morning, ATL. That's all y'all. Coach Scott, Father Nick, and it's go time. Yeah, it is. Jason, Oblivion Empire is here. Michael Ronquillo, good to see you. Rico, great to see you too. He says, Grand Rising, so ready for the season. I know this bye week is rough. Luckily, there's some really good college football games this weekend.
Yeah, I mean,
so that'll help, because it's like, man, ready for this. I don't want a bye week now. Come on, man, you're killing me.
Yeah, shout out to Georgia Tech, also to knocking out Florida State really quickly. Former number 1 quarterback recruit DJU, who I was excited to see because Clemson had that Watson to Lawrence thing going there. I'm like, okay, DJU, you're next. Obviously not. He's huge and he runs like a running back, but he can't throw. He's good for Georgia Tech. I don't know if there's any Georgia Tech fans in here. I know it's more of a dog-centric fan base, understandably, considering their success. But shout out to Georgia Tech, beating the Florida State Seminoles, who have been peeing and moaning about the ACC for a bit. So welcome back, ACC football play, and shout out Georgia Tech for winning across the pond.
And another wide receiver has been a big topic in here this morning. Almost everybody's asking about wide receiver. So we've got a 53-man roster projections on the site right now. I'm going to post those in the link, put those in the chat. And Daniel, after being, at all these practice camps and everything, he went receivers with 6 of them making the team. Drake London, Darnell Mooney, Ray McLeod, Kaderl Hodge, Casey Washington, and Chris Blair has played his way onto the team. You feel pretty good. You've got with Drake London, Darnell Mooney, and Ray McLeod right there. And then after that, Kaderl Hodge, he's kind of a backup type guy, a squad player, as we call them in international football. Casey Washington, Chris Blair. So you look at that and you say, do we need another receiver? Yeah, kind of. Yeah, another one would be nice, but I feel like it's a luxury also. A luxury, especially after I feel like I can look at wide receiver a little bit more with Matt Judon and Justin Simmons on the team. Another corner is I'm still interested in. I'm still interested in another cornerback first.
I mean, I don't even know if it's first necessarily, but as well. It depends on who's available and
good call.
What the contract they're looking for is. I mean, is it crazy even to say, says somebody mentioned earlier, edge, but it's just adding more pass rushers. It's never a bad thing. So especially those heavy rotational value positions, but again, because they're heavy rotational value positions, teams like to hold on to their serviceable or better players. So, I mean, after you get down past the first 4 guys, you'll be looking for somebody on there, and maybe you'll get somebody on the practice squad that you can elevate a few times that catches on. With the new elevation rule, how many times can you be elevated? 4? Is it something like that before you have to be either released or activated to the 53? But yeah, wide receiver is definitely a position that this Falcons team could further fortify, and I'm sure it's something we're going to talk about this offseason as well, because just looking at the roster, I mean, ideally you probably plug in somebody ahead of Mooney and McLeod, just an ideal, perfect roster, but you in other ways, it's fine. So yeah, we're looking for wide receiver for sure.
Yeah, you're paying Mooney like he's a number 2. Is he though?
Yeah,
we're not sure about that. He doesn't have to be. If we're going down options right now, okay, what are the options of players that are going to get the ball? Bijan Robinson's going to have the most touches. Drake London and Kyle Pitts should have the second and third most touches. I'd probably go Drake and then Kyle. Okay, Tyler Algier might be 4th.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're talking your 4th or 5th option is wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, and then another tight end. So you are talking about your 4th and 5th options here. What type of priority do you want to put on those? Always get good players. If one presents itself, then great. Michael Ronquillo, and this is a point of contention here. In fact, he's on the cover for the show. Is quarterback Taylor Heineke has been someone I've been trying to get rid of since the Falcons drafted Michael Penix. Daniel Flick on Falcons SI has him gone. He has the Falcons only keeping 2 quarterbacks. And that would probably mean John Paddock, who got cut yesterday, the other quarterback, don't pack your bags, kid. You stick around, hang out till Wednesday. If someone else picks you up, so be it. Otherwise, we're signing you back. That said, there's not much cost savings in getting rid of Taylor Heineke. You already took that savings when you gave him a pay cut earlier this year to stick with the team. Is quarterback valuable enough across the league that it's worth just having him around, knowing that you're not going to get any cost savings, and either he is your emergency 3 or he's trade bait come Halloween? I don't know. I think part of it also depends on what Taylor Heineke wants. I wouldn't think he'd want to be a number 3, but it's not the worst gig in the world either. Collect about several $1 million and hold a clipboard, Nick.
I just think he didn't look good enough that I'd almost rather keep the roster spot and use that practice squad flex player rather than keeping Heineke around. There's not much upside perceived with him. It's not like a young developmental guy with tools. You have Penix for that role. Now, the question is, we don't know this, but you brought it up last week. How healthy is Cousins? What's the long-term, prognosis with the health of Penix / Cousins as well? Like, what's going on there? That might change the math a little bit, but right now I'd rather have the roster spot, Scott, because I just don't think he's bringing a lot of value, and sneaking on one more wide receiver or cornerback or offensive lineman, I think would be more valuable, because I think you can probably find a Heineke again if you want, or bring in Paddock, bring O'Rourke on your practice squad and use them as the emergency +1 that you get on game day for call-ups.
Don Whelan, greetings from South Holland. That's very cool. I'm actually looking at a trip over that direction in January, depending on how my son's baseball schedule sneaks out. Mark Tremonti, to me, is one of the greatest hard rockers ever. I'm fairly new to him. I mean, I've listened to Creed, but I didn't really know who Mark Tremonti was until the last couple of years. Well, my son loves him too. He released a single and his new album, announced his new album and tour on my son's birthday. Well, he's touring in Europe. I'm like, hey, you want to go to Europe for a long weekend and go see Tremonti? He's like, yeah. So we're looking to get over there and sneak over and have a road trip. So thank you for joining us. One cool thing about the morning time slot is we get international folks come in.
Yeah. Have you been to Europe, Scott?
I've been to Europe several times, but I haven't been to Holland. I haven't been north of London.
Wow. Okay. After Natalie and I finished grad school, we worked our butts off and saved and did a 5-week in Europe kind of trip, a lot through Central Europe. Favorite cities in Europe. Amsterdam was a lot of fun. It's wild. It is, but make sure you're not, obviously not you, Scott, but maybe enjoy watching the inebriated people, because those, the canals are quite dangerous. I'm not going to lie. They're right there, so they don't care. Doing the bike tours, super fun. I absolutely loved Budapest. Budapest is a lot of fun to go to. Not super expensive. A lot of fun architecture there. And Prague. Prague is also incredible if you get a chance to get over there. So those are probably my 3 favorites when we visited Amsterdam. Dark horse, though, Ljubljana, Slovenia. Absolutely beautiful. People don't think of Slovenia, but it's kind of right there on the Adriatic Sea. You got the Alps there. Really, really beautiful. Gotta love Slovenia.
Well, the one I'm looking at right now is January 17th and January 19th. That's Oslo to Copenhagen.
Oh, I have not done the.
So I'd have a day in between those,
but
and then get back, and it just sneak him out of school on a Friday. Depends. Find out tomorrow night when tryouts are and all that kind of stuff for baseball, for high school baseball. So gonna try and pull that off. Let's see here. Harry, good to see you. He says, only sports I watch anymore is the Falcons. I'll watch more college football this year than I have in a long time, that's for sure. But I always watch these guys too. And they had a day yesterday, 6-2. That boring old 0-0 soccer. Yeah, that didn't happen in the Premier League. It was 6-2 yesterday. That doesn't happen very often either. to be fair. But that one was kind of fun. Roy, good to see you. Good morning. It's Nick and Scott. Now that preseason over and it's real games in 2 weeks. They probably play the Thursday game, though, so we're probably only about 10 days away. Looking forward to watch different teams. Fantasy is good for that. I'm going to scroll down here, and I'm going to get back to the topic here.
I see Leon keeps asking how my baby's doing, too. He's doing well. He's at daycare. We're good. Everybody's healthy. I've been combing his hair into a little mohawk as well. It's been a lot of fun because it just kind of stays up. He's got thick hair like his dad, I guess. So, yeah, he's doing well.
Evan says, just bought 300 level suite tickets for the game in Denver. Will either of you guys be there? Both of us will be there. And luckily for everybody else, so were our better halves.
Wrong game, Scott.
Oh, not Atlanta. We're going to the Mile High Huddle group is having a meet and greet in week 2, Steelers. He'll be there. I might go Denver, Atlanta, especially if I can. Good Lord. I got to the September. It might be a little more expensive later. I got round trip to Denver out of Atlanta for $140. $140. One of them was on I think the trip out there is on Delta and the way back is on Frontier. I can pack in a backpack for a weekend. No problem. So I might.
Yeah, it was a little more expensive for me, but I cannot pack in a backpack, Scott, because baby stuff. God.
Yeah, that's where they get you. It's like, $75 for a carry-on bag each way. It's like an extra $150. Well, I don't need that. Yeah. So, but I'm taking I am taking my wife out for the Mile High Huddle meet and greet. So if you're a Steelers fan, or Broncos fan, we'll be out there that day. But yeah, so Taylor Heineke gone. I wonder if he's, if he has any trade value at all. Do they risk holding on to him, or do they want another roster spot? Running backs. This one comes down to he's got 4 on here: Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, Avery Williams, which I've said is a roster bubble guy because he's not going to get reps as a running back. Avery Williams cannot make this team as a position player. Which, when you've got Ray McLeod, then can you make it just as a special teams guy? But the discussion then becomes between Carlos Washington and Jace McClellan, and he went with the draft pick, as people usually do. The draft pick, the rookie makes it Jace McClellan as running back 4, Nick.
Yeah. I mean, not surprising at all to pick the running back at the end. So we'll see. I'm still curious about Avery Williams, right? Like with the kickoff stuff there, how valuable is the spot? Obviously with Rondale Moore going down, do you want to spread Ray McLeod that thin as wide receiver 3 and the special teams duties? But really, I mean, how much value is Avery Williams actually bringing as a running back right now? That might change the math as well on that spot. But interesting spot. I definitely think that Jace McClellan deserves that last spot, though, especially being, 4 years of control, rookie running back. It makes sense.
Good question. As we start looking for, I'm going to hit the super chat real quick. I see color. I jumped to color. He says, as far as wide receiver go, it all depends on what kind of package they run when Kyle Pitts is on the field. Yeah, if he's in the slot, then he's a slot receiver. I don't consider him a tight end if he's in the slot. I consider him a slot receiver. Which is, why I push back on all this 12 personnel. Oh, they led the league in 12 personnel. No, they didn't. They just used Kyle Pitts as a slot receiver the whole time. And I know other people do that too. But when you play wide receiver, literally wide receiver, when you're out wide more than you are in line with your hand in the rubber pellets, when 80% of your snaps either come at slot receiver or wide receiver at XZ, you're a wide receiver, brother. Kyle Pitts has been a wide receiver for this team, who every once in a while comes in and stands next to Jake Matthews, but he's been a wide receiver. So, and that's why Nick and I have done, you may have catch on, we'll talk just receivers or pass catchers. We don't necessarily call them tight ends, wide receivers. They're offensive weapons. Yeah. Is how are you looking at these guys? Because we thought we'd see Bijan Robinson in the slot a little bit more often too. And you might, so positionless football, let's not overuse that term, but you can use these guys in different areas for sure.
Yeah, will be interesting if Pitts has a good year, what his contract kind of looks like, and how the negotiation works, right? If he's being used way more at wide receiver, I mean, you get down to the 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, gosh, I don't even know. I wish they had numbers ranking this.
You know how it worked for his fifth-year option? The Falcons
Yeah,
were
it
very
did, but
happy because they got a
it'll be
50%
different.
discount on it.
It'll be different though when he's open market. He'll have a little bit more cards there.
Yeah, they got a 50% discount on his fifth-year option because he's a tight end.
Yeah, I mean, the highest paid tight ends in football right now are Kelsey, Hockenson, and Kittle. They're making $17 million a year, $16 million a year, $15 million a year. You get down to like Jerry Jeudy's making more than that.
Jerry Jeudy's making more than the highest paid. Would you rather have on your team, Jerry Jeudy or Travis Kelce?
For one season,
Travis Kelce.
Season,
I know.
Yeah.
Blah blah
yeah,
blah.
Yeah.
I'd rather have Travis Kelce for one.
I would still rather have him too, but this is a little bit more of a discussion. If you put it that way,
I mean,
Calvin Ridley.
Good question coming in from Bucks Raised Pulse. Says, who do you think has the advantage in the NFC South for the first 5 games? The Falcons' schedule's kind of tough. The Buccaneers could get out to an early lead. So the Buccaneers start Commanders at home, at Lions. That's hardly a gimme. You chalk that one up as an L on paper. Broncos at home, Eagles at home, and then at Falcons. If you're just looking at this off the cuff, you go win, loss, win, push, loss. So that's what 2-2-1 as far as that goes with Eagles. And then I will right now. I would do the same thing. This isn't a Falcons Buccaneers thing. It's at Falcons, so I gave the Falcons the advantage in the first time, and I would do the same if it was at Buccaneers. It's not just overly homer; they're fairly evenly matched and have split a lot. The Falcons, on the other hand, they go Steelers at Eagles, Chiefs, Saints, Buccaneers at home. So I would think when you're going to be favored against the Steelers. When at Eagles, we'll call that an L. Chiefs, you got them early. You're not really sure what's going on with the Chiefs. I'd lean Chiefs, but that's going to be a better game than most. The Falcons have a better chance, I think, than most people would think. But we'll call it an L. So you're 1-2, and then Saints Buccaneers at home, win-win as the home games. So that's 3-2 again, 2-1, pretty even. One game, they'll either be even or separated by one game, I think, after the first 5. Yeah,
and after that, I mean, it's pretty downhill for you guys. It's tough early, no doubt. I mean, 2 of your 2 better divisional opponents. Sorry, Carolina, Eagles. I mean, they got a really talented roster. We'll see if Sirianni's still there by the end of the year. I wonder if it's already hot at that point. Who knows? After they lost, Steichen, right? He kind of seemed to maybe be a lot of the brains are on that offensive side of the ball, but. Well, it's a tough first 5 games with a lot of question marks, a lot of new pieces with the Falcons, a lot of new first-time coordinators as well. So we'll see. I think the big thing, it'll be easy to say right now, Scott, but in the moment, let's say they start 2-3, 1-4 even. I don't think that'll happen, but still a long season to go, and it gets significantly easier. It's the opposite of like college football, right? You have those if you're following a big team, you have those opening season games where Iowa's playing against Illinois State, the first game. Very
Auburn's
easy.
got Alabama A&M this weekend.
Yeah, stuff like that. It's the opposite of that. You have all your tough games right out the gate on paper. Well, the season, surprises can happen, but I would not panic if you start off a little slow. It's a long season to go.
Let's get back to let's see, what do I call these things? The 53-man projection. The tight end's pretty simple. I think all 3 make the team. Kyle Pitts, Charlie Warner, Ross Dwelly. Can you hold on to John Fitzpatrick on the practice squad? We'll see about that one. Offensive lineman, there's 8. No real surprises here. It's Jake Matthews, Matthew Bergeron, Drew Dahlman, Chris Lindstrom, Caleb McGarry. That's left to right on your left tackles. Storm Norton is your swing tackle. Ryan Newsel, inside, outside, center guard, and then Kyle Hinton also. I did like what I saw from, what's his last name? Throckmorton. I have to look him up, see if I can pronounce that correctly. Stuber, or did he get cut? Hell, he may have gotten cut already. Or no, it was Julian Davenport. I did that like
makes
what
sense.
I saw.
Okay, I was going to say Throckmorton's Broncos. Julian Davenport.
Yeah, he had a different name. It was Davenport. I did like what I saw from Davenport. If they cut him, hopefully they can sneak him on the practice squad. I think he's an NFL guy. It might be a back end of the NFL, but I think he's an NFL player based on watching him play.
From what I've seen, he's not been cut yet. Your offensive line cuts have been Bailey, Jones-Smith, and Liglu. So Davenport's still out there.
I didn't remember. I remember looking yesterday and saying, okay, Paddock is the only one that got my attention from the names that were cut.
Not an A?
No, Bradley and A. I mean, not after Judon comes in. I know with Trice though, I guess that could be a little bit of a surprise, but he's not very good.
Especially with Malone being so disappointing. I wasn't exactly sure.
Yeah, and this is what happens, y'all, when you're winning Super Bowls. The Chief just signed Juju Smith. Breaking news. Thank you for bringing that in, y'all. This is what happens when you're a playoff team winning Super Bowls, and teams make moves for whatever reason. Usually it's financial. They make a move. It's like, okay, he's not quite worth what we're paying him. Yeah, but we can get him for nothing. He's worth that. And the Chiefs ended up getting a pretty good player on that. When you're playing well, you become a destination where guys don't mind coming in because they're already getting paid from their previous contracts and trying to win. And that's where the Falcons want to be. Yeah.
Yep. No doubt. Any real surprises there on the other side there, Scott? We got more coming in. And A doesn't have special teams value. That's a good call. And also an A is somebody who you might be able to stick on the practice squad. I just thought it maybe would be a conversation between him and Malone because he's been so poor. But
let's get to edge and we'll see who, because he's only got 4 edges sticking because you take so many interior linemen. And it's Matt Judon, James Smith-Williams, Arnold Ebiketie, and Lorenzo Carter. So you're only taking 4. Malone doesn't make it either.
No. So that's too bad. Malone not making it, a former 3rd-round pick. He is a special team standout, though. And especially with the new kickoff rules, maybe the linebacker has a little bit more value there. I mean, we're still kind of figuring out what is valuable with the new kickoff rules. But he's interesting.
And then lots of linemen here. Defensive linemen, Grady Jarrett, David Onyemata, Taquan Graham, Arohoro, Brandon Dorlus, Zach Harrison, Eddie Goldman, and Contavious Street. You have a draft pick getting cut in there then. And if they keep 8, then Zion Logue is not on that list. That doesn't happen real often. It's happened before. Who was I? You told me the other day there's a guard, and I've already forgot his name, from Georgia. He was a 6th-round pick. He got cut and re-signed.
His name Sheffield,
2 years ago.
Sheffield.
I've already forgot. Jordan Schaefer. Was it Schaefer?
Yeah.
Justin Schaefer.
Justin
Schaefer. And he made it back to the practice squad, but he was cut. So I liked what I saw from Zion Logue. When you're cutting guys like Zion Logue, I would be looking to pick him up if I needed a big body. I don't know that he sneaks through. As Rex says, he very likely goes to the practice squad. Is likely here as insurance. Remember, and Rex, I don't know if you came in late, but I started the show by reminding everybody, if you cut somebody, you don't just put them on the practice squad. They've got to go through waivers. So if I was a team in need of a big body on the back end of my defensive line, there's 8 for Atlanta. If I needed 6, 7, 8, I'd be looking at Logue. I'd be real interested in nabbing Logue from another team. So there's no guarantee at all that you even get them to the practice squad or can keep them on the practice squad because they're essentially free agents after that. Tony Big Buck Buchanan has kind of a funny question. He says, Scott and Nick, good morning. What's with Mike Florio and his obsession with the Falcons? He hates us. Also, what do you think about adding Julio for a farewell tour? I think Julio's done. He's been making some rosters and just not making an impact on several teams the last couple of years. I just think his body is given out on him. I think he's pretty much finished. As far as Florio, he was made to look pretty foolish, and he's mad about it. When you start going with one source, and you're not cross-referencing sources, well, your information is biased by that source. So he took everything that the Vikings had to say about the whole situation and was just parroting it out there. And it didn't come to pass. And he looked like an idiot. And now he's pissed about it. I've said, when will you see an analyst start getting mad is when you go out on a limb. When I'd get mad is when I'd go out on a limb for a team, like, preseason. I'm like, oh, this team's great. They're doing this. And then they fall on their faces. Man, I'm tough on them the next year. I'm kind of pissed. I'm kind of pissed. Well, Florio looked like an idiot with his Kirk Cousins stuff. He looked like an idiot, and he's mad about it.
He's pretty connected to the Vikings as well. I mean, he's been accused of bias pro Vikings, which tough place to be. It's just that's a cursed franchise, it seems. But yeah, no, he's very pro Vikings, and that would make sense to be anti-Atlanta given how things transpired this offseason.
Yeah, he went on. He went out and said all this stuff was going to happen, and he looked like an idiot. Inside linebackers, and we're almost done. Caden Ellis, Troy Anderson, Nate Landman, J.D. Bertrand. That one's pretty set in stone. Hurts a little bit for Mutin. He's been playing really well.
He stood out.
Cornerbacks, A.J. Terrell, Mike Hughes, D. Alford, Clark Phillips. Those four were pretty much set in stone. And then Daniel's got Antonio Hamilton and Kevin King, which also means that Natron Brooks does not make the team. And this is why he says it. Hamilton not playing the preseason finale. King is a favorite to be Atlanta's number 6 corner, beating Natron Brooks and Anthony Johnson. And I added this part as an editor's note. King has also seen time at safety this spring practice, this fall camp. So King's also seen time cross-training, which leads you to believe that he's got a spot with his versatility. Safeties, I'm going to kind of burn through these, Nick, 'cause we're going to get out of here quickly. Jesse Bates, Justin Simmons, Richie Grant making the team, Micah Abernathy, and then DeMarco Helms. And DeMarco Helms could be moved immediately to a PUP list afterwards, or a short-term IR after he makes the 53, which would open up a spot for one of these players that we're talking about to immediately being re-signed. Someone who gets cut will immediately be re-signed to the 53 as soon as they're allowed to, based on putting Helms on short-term IR so he doesn't have to miss the whole season.
Yeah, and hopefully it'll be Natron, because I thought he had
there you go.
Season. Yep. Yeah. I mean, King Brooks, we'll see. But he was probably one of my favorite, back end of the roster guys to watch, who stood out and made play after play. Good tackling as well, which I always appreciate from a defensive back. So hopefully Brooks is somebody who Atlanta can find a way to keep him around.
I got some Brent Grimes vibes from him. I don't know if you remember him, Nick. Bucks Race Bolts will remember him. He got a pretty good contract. He was just an undersized, good cover, hard-nosed. I have to work a little bit harder than everybody else because when I show up, people go, this dude's 160 pounds soaking wet. He can't play here. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he can. He can play here.
Was he the one who had a wife who was a little problematic?
I don't – that doesn't narrow it down. So okay. I don't remember. I just remember he was he was a guy that kind of came in from the back end of the roster, played really well for the Falcons, and then ended up making a lot of money. I'm pretty sure he got the big contract from the Buccaneers, if I remember right. But he was skinny. He was thin.
Yeah, I do remember him. I feel like his wife had some.
Michael remembers.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
They remember here. KB, good to see you, Kenny. He says, you guys still have Patterson at running back? No, he had a touchdown for the Steelers in the preseason game, and people were pissed. Steelers were pissed. They're like, here it comes. Here comes Cordell Patterson. They're going to bench Najee Harris. So, and Harry Marshall with the Spud Webb of cornerbacks. Yeah, he was small, but he was a good player. Brett Grimes was a good player. I feel that I get those same kind of vibes from Natron Brooks. On that note, we've been vibing with y'all for about 45 minutes already. We're going to be back on Wednesday to get a reaction to the roster moves. They will be coming in. They'll be coming in today. So stay tuned. We're building our tracker on FalconsSI.com, Atlanta Falcons on SI, building the tracker. The moves have already started coming in. About a third of them have already been made. and they'll be coming in all day today. And then the final will be tomorrow to the 53. And then more roster moves will be made over the next 48 hours as they shuffle some guys in and out of IR, including DeMarco Helms, and as they sign guys to the practice squad. So one last thing real quick, Nick. People always talk about, we don't want to lose this guy, we don't want to lose that guy, or think of all the players that'll be available. 98% of players signed to practice squads were with their current team. So there's not a lot of roster shuffling. Oh, I can't wait to get that guy when he gets away. Most of the guys, you don't have to worry about them being poached from other teams if you want to keep them on the practice squad. You don't. I've said, you know, watch out. Zion Logue, I would watch out for if you cut him. But that's one of 16. Pretty much the rest of the guys you are able to keep.
Yeah. Your focus is almost just a general perspective, too narrow, right? It's like, oh my God, this guy did so well, everybody's going to want him. They're more focused on their own guys with the same
I know my guys.
Yep. So
they've been here. We've invested in them. They know everything we're doing. I don't want to start over for a guy that just got cut for somebody else because he wasn't good enough. You know, the guys that are getting cut for salary cap reasons, that's happened by now already. So on that note, y'all, appreciate you being here. Want to say a special thank you to Keith and Ellen Johnson on Facebook and Edward Brown. Appreciate you helping to keep the lights on, keep this forehead nice and shiny. We will see you on Wednesday. Appreciate y'all helping make this a great show. And y'all have a great Monday, and we'll see you later this week.
Peace.